We've officially been rejected for a fourth time. So will a fifth time be the charm? I want to talk about all of this today, and I also want to discuss what we've been seeing recently from the kind of fundamental data coming from ICP and what this means kind of within the larger picture. Because right now there's a lot of different things going on, some of it quite positive and some of it, to be completely honest, quite negative. And so we need to go through and kind of sort all of it and discuss and figure out what kind of impact will this have on ICP as a token, both price as well as kind of future prospects going on into the end of this year, and then of course, several years out from now. So we'll go on ahead, we'll dive right in, and we'll take a look at kind of where it sits within the wider market today, and then we'll go and we'll take a look at just some various things happening within the chart, as well as some great news within the ecosystem as well. So first off, starting out, we can see a pretty mixed day in the market. ICP is actually positive when a decent chunk of the market is negative. So that is relatively good to see. Frankly, a little bit recently, ICP is usually negative when much of the market is positive. It has kind of lagged a little bit in price. So the fact that it is positive on a kind of a split day, I think is pretty good. However, this is, this doesn't kind of change the fact that ICP is lagged pretty hard compared to the rest of the market. So some of these that are red for the day have already been up well more than what we've seen out of ICP. If we do look at the week, we can see a pretty red week overall. Most coins being negative here. We do have some positive though, that there is a little bit of a spread here. But if we do look at the month, everything very, very green. You can see here, this is a little bit of what I'm talking about. We can see ICP up about 22% on the month, while we're seeing several other coins doing kind of much better than that. I would say the market average, obviously we have some major outliers being up well over 100%, but the market average, I would say, is probably in the 40 to like 35% range, roughly, just kind of based on a quick approximation out here. And ICP is about 22%. So definitely not keeping up with what I would call the market average, but it is still moving quite nicely. And really importantly, we're at a very, very key point. As I have mentioned, we've now been rejected a fourth time on a very key level of resistance. You can see here are all kind of the important resistance levels that I'm identifying, at least right now. And what we can see here is it remains that this $6.30 range, really difficult to get past. If we go back in and we kind of zoom in a bit into the recent kind of price action here, you will see exactly that. I mean, we've been rejected one time back here in March, then we came back down, rejected another time here in early May, rejected another time here in mid-June, and then of course rejected another time again here in late July. So definitely not exactly what we were hoping to see. We also did see a really nice candle to the upside. We saw this running a little bit, and then now it's come back down. So, we're definitely seeing a little bit of some struggling from ICP price. As I mentioned, getting through this $6.30 range is going to be unbelievably challenging. If we can get through it, then that of course is a good thing. But until then, we're going to have to wait and see and kind of see what happens over the next little while as we get some more confirmation of what's going on here with ICP price. Of course, we have to get through this $6.30 range. Being rejected now 4 times is definitely a little disheartening, but I do think that this is all short term. If you're focused on the longer term, a lot of this realistically probably doesn't even really matter. This is more for people who are looking to trade ICP short term, and also potentially people who are looking to see how ICP does kind of in the more near term for this cycle. If you are kind of viewing ICP as more of a 4 to 8 year hold, then this all probably doesn't really matter to you at all. What we can see with RSI is we have kind of recovered back to neutral here, also getting close to neutral here on the Bollinger Bands as well. So we should have a lot more kind of room to run in terms of like moving up and seeing price kind of move up. We can see we are, in a much better spot, in a much better, kind of area, similar to what we're seeing through a lot of the other altcoins as well. But we're at a much higher place on the chart, while we've seen a lot of these kind of fundamental metrics reset. So I do view that as a really good thing for ICP, as well as many others within the market. So we'll have to see, you know, if we can get some momentum to continue back to the upside. It was looking like we were going to have a little bit of momentum here. Currently, you can see we're on a little bit of a red wick. This, of course, can always turn around in an instant and then continue to send us back to the upside, which is, of course, you know, what we would all be looking for. But so far, you know, that's kind of what we're seeing from ICP. Really all eyes on the $6.30 range. Until we can break that, there's not really too much to talk about, unfortunately. We're going to be just kind of waiting and seeing, and again, not too much to talk about from a technical and chart perspective. You can see here, you know, 750, 850, 970, 1070, 1147. These are going to be kind of the big targets that we hit on the way up, but $6 would kind of, at least so far, seeming to be kind of the most difficult of them all so far. We've never really seen ICP struggle so much around a price. Other than maybe like this, you know, 850 range, we saw a decent bit, but I don't think we saw as much action around it as we have seen so far. So hopefully, if we do get past this range, then much of the bearish kind of sell pressure and bearish sentiment should be taken out, and we hopefully will be able to move relatively easily through the rest of these. But again, time will tell. We just really never know for sure, so we'll just have to wait and see. Now, moving on, I want to take a look at a couple of different pieces of news for ICP. The first one here we could see is Dominic Williams was at the Federal Palace. You know, this is another really good thing here. This is the Swiss Blockchain Federation invites only the top blockchain pioneers to the Federal Palace. They don't waste time with fluff. They invite leaders actually shaping the future. Who's front and center? Dominic Williams. If we go, we could see the picture here. There's Dominic Williams. So, you know, there's ICP definitely making their presence known here at the Blockchain Federation here in Switzerland. So hopefully, you know, we could see some interesting announcements or some interesting releases coming from this. Nothing so far other than it was just announced. And then we have, you know, a couple of different things we could see here. Almost 30 of the most prominent blockchain pioneers to the Federal Palace. So again, you know, ICP being included as one of those. At this point, I would expect that. If not, that would have been a little bit of a disappointment, particularly given that, you know, they are based in Switzerland and a lot of that type of stuff. And the next one we have, you can see, you know, talking about internet computers showing up, all that type of stuff. So relatively simple thing, nothing too crazy going on here, but I do think that this is good, of course, for the kind of continued exposure of ICP. Things looking pretty decent there. Now, next, we can also see from more of a technical perspective, a big day for ICP. Nearly 3,000 new wallets were added in the last 24 hours. Haven't seen this kind of growth since February. Momentum building? Question mark. Who knows? We'll have to see, right? But we could see a decent number of new wallets, and this has actually been trending up kind of like since the beginning of July. So that's good to see. I mean, this is kind of after we saw a little bit of a fall off in like the mid June to early July phase. We saw this kind of trend down a little bit. We now can see the averages are getting back to kind of where we were, you know, with a peak here that is the highest of the year that we've seen so far. So definitely good to see that you know, and we're seeing kind of a continued, let's say, you know, kind of average 14 to 1600 addresses being created every day though, which is really good to see. That obviously is continued growth within the ecosystem. Very, very good to see. So let's hope that this growth continues, and honestly, we want it to continue to accelerate as well. Would kind of be the best thing to see here. We'll just have to see. And then next one, this is kind of some bad news in my opinion. We can see here the cycle burn rate definitely struggling mightily. The cycle burn rate is what's responsible for burning a decent chunk of ICP and probably like the majority of ICP within the ecosystem. And we have seen this kind of dwindle away to lows that we have not seen prior to like last September. So definitely a pretty rough result here from what we've seen. You know, we were kind of seeing highs holding at kind of like that 1.3 trillion cycles per second for at least a little while, but it has kind of dwindled away down into you know, far lower numbers, which is not necessarily great, because that does mean that the ICP ecosystem is more inflationary, and that is going to add kind of inherent like more sell pressure when we look on the chart here, because there's going to be more and more coins at this same level. This is going to kind of increase inherent sell pressure on the ICP ecosystem. So this is definitely not a good sign. We would want to see the cycle burn rate to be increasing and not kind of decreasing over time. So we do need to be watching this very closely, because this is, in my opinion, is definitely signs of this is reason to be concerned, at least to some level. Again, not trying to kind of spread fear or uncertainty or doubt or anything, but this is something that's definitely not the ideal outcome that we would be wanting to see here. And so we just need to be watching super closely. Again, I think that none of this changes the underlying tech that we're seeing within ICP. So this is something that I'm not saying is like, oh my gosh, we need to sell or whatever, but this is something that can, in my opinion, very heavily and very dramatically impact when the outcome of like some of these things that we are seeing could be. So with the really, really difficult struggles at these kind of like $6.30 price ranges, as well as the struggles that we're seeing with kind of some of the fundamental data from cycle burn rate dropping, there is slight cause to be concerned that we may not see the level of gains that we could see in this cycle. Now, of course, there are several of you who I know, because you guys are always in the comment section, leave me a comment of kind of where you're at in terms of your investment strategy for ICP. But I know that there are a lot of people who are kind of focused on the 4 to 8 years, not really super concerned about this cycle, and I think those people will be just fine. There's not really anything going on that I find too unusual here. I think it's totally fine. So for the people looking towards next cycle, or maybe even the cycle after that, none of this really matters. I think seeing things like the Oizy wallet and Caffeine AI and the continued success and adoption of those, that's really what we're looking for. For those of us looking for for us to potentially see some gains this cycle, we do need to be looking at some of these more fundamental metrics and some of the price action, some of the price momentum, and hopefully seeing that does fairly well here. So overall, kind of a mixed day in terms of both news as well as fundamental data. Hopefully you did find the information in this video useful. If you did, I will kind of give a little bit of a caveat here though. If we do look at the Bitcoin chart and we pull over into this chart, you can see we're kind of at a point where we're kind of just stuttering around on Bitcoin as well. Now, of course, we have broken to new all-time highs, and at this point, we're just kind of like consolidating around. This is okay. So the fact that we're kind of consolidating with ICP is not necessarily the worst thing, but the difference here is Bitcoin is consolidating, kind of at or near all-time highs, and ICP is struggling to kind of really even get off the ground from kind of the lows that we saw back in April. So you can see here's the lows in April that we saw for Bitcoin, and then we move up here. You can also see I've got a Bitcoin trade open, and then if you look here's the lows that we saw back in April, and then here's where we are right now. So definitely a very, very different look on the chart here for ICP. But I do think that it's not necessarily the end of the world that we are having a difficult time struggling to break, because we are in a much better position than we were. If we continue to struggle to break after we see another rotation or another kind of jump from the rest of the altcoins, then that could be a little bit of a difficult type of situation. So anyway, overall, like I said, hopefully you found the information in the video useful. If you did, like, subscribe, do all that type of good stuff. It does help me out. Also, if you have any comments, questions, anything like that, just drop those in the comment section below. And then also, I do have those links to BTCC or BloFin in the description below as well if you are looking to trade ICP. Depending on kind of what your thoughts are, we're in a range where we could be looking to break through that major level of resistance, or potentially we're going to be getting rejected and we might see a decent move back to the downside. Whichever you think, if you want to be trading those, I do have really, really fantastic sign-up bonuses on each of those. If you are interested, just use my link in the description below. They're really, really, really great deals. So if you are interested and are looking to trade, then that is a great way to do that as well. So anyway, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.